talked about a whole bunch of stuff. And overall, what this does is we can say pretty clearly that it's going to add a whole bunch more to the federal debt. So the deficit projection for the House bill is anywhere from 2.3 trillion. The Congressional Budget Office, or the CBO, is usually very conservative in their amounts, all the way up to $3.8 trillion from the Joint Committee on Taxation.
And there are some figures that are even higher than what we see on the screen. These are like, this is the mean, this is the average.
Yeah, and these are all nonpartisan organizations. The Senate bill, you don't see any scoring on those yet, and that's because they haven't come out with them yet, because the bill isn't put together yet. And as of us taping this, the Senate is actually going to be most likely voting on a bill that's going to cost us trillions and trillions of dollars over the next 10 years without even knowing how much it's going to cost us.
There are some estimates, there are some conversations saying that the vote could be as early as this Friday, because Trump wants to sign this bill into law on the 4th of July, which is obviously next week. So if it's voted on by Friday and there's still no CBO scorings, they're going to literally be voting on this bill without knowing how much it'll cost us.
And this is not normal.
This is not normal. There's no precedent for this. In fact, we wrote a slide that didn't make the final cut, but if you want to see it, maybe we'll put it online. There is no precedent for this. The average window of time to pass a reconciliation bill is normally like double what we're seeing right here. It is not normal. But I also want to point out that it is not normal to have 1 a.m. votes. It's not normal to be having these conversations when people are sleeping. It is not normal to be pushing this so quickly, to the point where representatives in the House are coming out and saying, I am so sorry, I shouldn't have voted for this, I disagree. Marjorie Taylor Greene said she would have voted no if the AI regulation portion wasn't on there. There are people that are like, oh, I didn't know the AI portion was on there, I didn't know the separations of power clause was in there, and if I did, I would have voted no. So we passed this bill in the middle of the night, unprecedentedly so, and we did so without even reading the bill.
And Mitch McConnell kind of said it the clearest of everyone. He said, we're just going to kind of have to deal with it.
Well, Joni Ernst said everyone dies, therefore it's acceptable, right? So
everyone does die.
Everyone does die. So I just wanted to touch base that for whatever reason, I am not going to imply anything. I am not going to assign purpose or intention, because that would be very partisan. But it is not normal to be seeing what we're seeing.
It's not normal to rush it. Yeah. It's to not have the CBO score has never happened before, because senators should want to understand how it's going to impact what happens going forward.
And our representatives, our electeds, should have enough time to be able to review the package and make recommendations. The entire way our system works is you read the bill and you can propose amendments and you can do markups in committee. But if you haven't read the bill, how do you propose changes on something you haven't read?
And most importantly, get feedback from the people who live in your state.
Exactly. Talk to people that are involved. Talk to your stakeholders. That is how it's supposed to work. But this, because they have that July 4th deadline, they're pushing it through.
But there's actually not a July 4th deadline. Like,
not
they can
technically.
Go further.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need fireworks after it happens. You
Yeah.
can keep going. You can explain the bill to your constituents. You can have town halls about it. You can listen to people's concerns. We're just pushing it through.
Yeah.
And there's something very unusual about that that we should at least highlight. So let's go ahead and talk about where our cuts are coming from and where the increases in deficits are. So decreases in debts, in deficits is SNAP cuts. The Pell Grants and loan cuts are only in the House bill, but in the Senate bill, they still have $300 billion in cuts because they tighten loan repayment so much. Medicaid cuts in the Senate version are even worse. Clean energy incentives, eliminating those are about comparable. CFPB cuts will not be there, so yay for that. But that's kind of where our priorities are not. Okay, we are going to focus less on giving people money to get enough food, on making sure that people can repay their student loans, on Medicaid, on clean energy. And then let's talk about where it's increasing deficits. We're putting a lot more, about $200 billion into defense and the border wall. And the big one is extending those tax cuts, okay, which is around, and this is CBO estimates, it's around $3.8 trillion to extend those tax cuts.
All right. So if there's one word that I want you to keep in mind right now, it's this. It's risk. Not politics, not partisanship, risk. And that's because that's what this bill, this one big beautiful bill is built on. Not a foundation of certainty or accountability, but a tangle of dangerous gambles with very real stakes for people like you and me. So let's start with the big picture, our economy. This bill takes on trillions in new spending and debt, and at the very same time, it picks fights with global partners that we rely on to buy our bonds. That's like maxing out your credit card while threatening to block your bank account. It's not just reckless, it's risky. And if those countries walk away, if those investors pull back, the fiscal crisis that follows won't hit headlines first. It'll hit our paychecks, our retirement accounts, our grocery bills. And it doesn't stop there. The bill increases risk to families. It slashes programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and other support systems that millions of working parents, disabled people, veterans, and low-income children rely on. So ask yourself, what happens when those programs are gone? Just as this bill's, new cuts and just as we've seen tariffs and executive actions risk triggering a recession. I mean, what happens if that happens? What happens when prices go up and paychecks go down, but there's no safety net left? We stop calling it hard times and we start calling it what it is, survival. This bill doesn't protect us from that. It accelerates it. It bakes risk into the system and hands the bill to the people with the least cushion. So no, this isn't about line items or legal language. It's about risk. Whose risk increases, whose risk disappears, and whether our government is willing to gamble with people's lives and call it policy. The stakes here aren't theoretical, they're deeply personal, and they deserve our full attention. And I just want to say, this bill cuts taxes mostly for richer people, mostly for people making over $500,000. It cuts Medicaid and food stamps and allows ACA subsidies to lapse or expire. I want to say that it's very exact, it's very precise. There's $1.1 trillion in tax cuts for people who make more than $500,000 a year. And there's exactly $1.1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and food stamps, making it a direct transfer from people who cannot afford food and medical care to people who can afford to fly wherever they want in the world. So what happens now? You're going to see some really pretty arrows on the screen. It is a timeline here. So what happens now? We're in the Senate, and we've done committee markups for the most part. We're kind of in the budget committee compilation portion, but we have seen some bird rule challenges. Again, the parliamentarian has already issued, bird rule challenge, I guess, verdict. I don't know what the word would be. She has removed quite a few provisions that violated the bird rule. She's removed quite a few. So, right now they're putting everything into that final reconciliation package. They're trying to keep in mind what the parliamentarian has said. But, right now, just because that happened, it doesn't mean that, it's over. So there's two routes that the Senate can go. All eyes are on Leader Thune to see what he does. Now, there's two kind of avenues that you can take. Number one, the leader in the Senate, which is John Thune right now, he can ignore it and say, I don't care, and move on like it's another Tuesday. Or he can put it up to a vote, and with a 50-vote majority, the ruling is overruled. And so we will see. Now, Senator Thune has, kind of already come out and said that he's not going to overrule it, that he's going to respect it. But again, that doesn't mean that another senator or leader won't bring it up for a vote. Now, from there, we'll see floor debate and amendments. So the full Senate will come together to debate the bill. Again, they can point of order and make Byrd rule challenges. They can, try to mitigate some of the harm in this bill by proposing floor amendments. And they will rigorously debate. Again, because this is a reconciliation bill, there's no filibustering. So that's really important to mention here. No one's going to be able to Cory Booker this and go up for a full day to make a stand, even though I wish they could. There will be a debate and there will be amendments made, and we will see if any of the harm is mitigated or if anything is removed. And then from there, it'll be a final vote and the simple majority wins. Okay, but I don't want anyone to be discouraged that this is it and it's over, and it's not. So there are things that we can do now. You can call the Capitol switchboard at any time. Call that number 202-224-3121. Ask for your senators, Senator Scott and Senator Moody here in Florida. Our senators' job is to vote how their constituents want them to vote. So tell them, be calm, be courteous, and be clear. There are many, many scripts you can use online. We put one here on the screen for you. Essentially, just say what your name is, where you live. You can tell them your occupation. Personally, no one's ever asked me that, but you can give them, where you live. I live in, so-and-so Florida, and this is why I care about the bill. And from there, you can ask to meet with the senator, although good luck because they have a very busy schedule. You can email them, or you can, be on the phone and ask them to vote no. You can ask them to vote no on the big, beautiful bill unless critical provisions are amended regarding any of the things that you care about. So climate and energy, uneven distribution of tax cuts, Medicaid cuts, border policy, AI rules, whatever you disagree with, whatever you don't like, you can ask them at that point in time, at that juncture, to say no to the bill unless they make those critical provisions, more fair or better. You can also ask them to make amendments on those things. But express that we need a full debate. We need public hearings. We need revisions before we pass this bill. So you can email them, you can call them, you can meet with them if you're close. But the important thing is that you ask them to vote no, or you ask them to amend it. You can also ask them to enact the Byrd rule. So you can ask your senator to use the Byrd rule to challenge provisions that don't comply with reconciliation guidelines. And these include, limitations on judicial enforcement, artificial intelligence, state bans, defunding Planned Parenthood, and some that we didn't even get a chance to cover. So, the increased immigration application fees, or even the gun silencer tax repeal. If there is something in this bill that really strikes a chord with you, please, 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 stand up and talk about it. So regardless of the outcome of this particular bill, democracy is an active word, and it demands participation. We must fight for it. We must safeguard it. Now, before we close, I want to say a couple of things. Like, let's first just take a collective breath, because that was a lot.
That was a lot.
It was so much at one time. So, like, deep breath in, deep breath out. There's a lot in this bill, and it's okay if you're leaving us right now with more questions than you came in with. That's not a failure. That's progress. Democracy isn't clean and tidy. It's a group project with no end date and infinite group chats. It's basically a group project where no one has read the same instructions and half the team forgot snacks. But we are in this together. And the most important thing is that you showed up tonight. The most important thing that happened wasn't a policy breakdown. It wasn't a panelist zinger. It was you. You showed up. You asked hard questions. You stayed engaged. You listened. And maybe, just maybe, when you log out of this video, you leave a little bit more ready to speak up, to dig in, or to help someone else understand what's going on. So if something you heard tonight fired you up, confused you, gave you goosebumps, or made you side-eye the ceiling, we want you to take that and do something with it. Email your reps, talk to your coworkers or your neighbors or your friends or your family. start a group chat, hold a sign, do an interpretive dance with a poster, do something. So, and finally, thank you truly for bringing, your presence here, and for taking the time to hear us out. Thank you for being here and for caring, uh, for wanting to know more and wanting to be involved. That is how democracy works. It works when all of us have a voice, when all of us are at the table, and all of us have a voice in the legislation that we put forward.
Because it's about us. That's what democracy is.
It is. So stay curious, stay active, and let's keep talking about it, America.